Hi there, and welcome to another live stream here on YouTube. And we've got, of course, Richard Smith there. But before we talk to Richard, we're going to introduce Sara Davis. And just for those people that don't know you, Sara, can you just give us a little brief history about yourself?
Yeah, of course, Steve. Thanks for the invite this evening. So I'm a neurophysiologist in the health service, and I also work alongside Rich in Keto Pro, volunteering, doing consultations, nutritional consultations, because my journey began really in October 2020 when I was unwell, type 2 diabetes for years and years and years, injecting high blood pressure, rheumatoid arthritis, all these nasty things, and needed to change my life around, which obviously Richard helped me do. And I lost 6.5 stone. I've reversed all my ailments, and I've taken up sport, which has, apart from the weight loss, has drastically changed my life. Well, for the better, I think. I train with my husband and Richard and his wife and all of our fellow clubmates, and yeah, it's been really, really successful 2 years. I did London Marathon last October, and I did it again this April. And in May, I had to go at my first ever triathlon because my husband bought me a present to do Ironman Barcelona 70.3 for my 50th birthday. So I thought I better try and learn how to do triathlon. So I started May the 14th in a local sprint race, and I did 3 races locally, and then I went up to Northumberland and entered a European qualifying race, where I've had the email this week, which I was really, really pleased about, because I've qualified for Team GB for age group to go to the European Championships next year. So yeah, really happy with that for my first year of doing triathlon, because I'm still really a novice at it.
Amazing. So obviously, I'd congratulate you. Rich knows all about it already.
Yeah.
But it does show, doesn't it? Because people, I find when people first start this way of eating, they bought into, well, I've got to have carbs to do any sort of activities. And then you talk them out of that and say, well, you don't need to, you just need to get fat adapted. And then they say, yes, but my performance is going to suffer. And you say, well, no, not really. Your performance might get better. And then the last argument when they get really good is, well, I won't ever be really good, will I? And there you are, qualifying for Team GB. So you are proof that you don't need carbohydrates and you could do it all on keto. What do you reckon, Rich?
In her first year of competing, too, might I add, which is absolutely incredible. And it's a shame that more people in that community are not open-minded, because, and I don't think Sara will mind me saying this, that Sara and I competed earlier this year in our first duathlon together, of which Sara won her age category. And there were other groups, other running groups or athletic clubs that accused her of cheating because she beat athletes in there who had been training for years and years and years in her first ever duathlon. You can't cheat at these events. It's all done with chip, and you cross mats. So they questioned whether you actually did 3 loops instead of 2 on the second run, wasn't it? And it's there in black and white, but they just couldn't, they wouldn't admit that this person came into this environment and had beaten them in their own sport on no carbohydrate. And Sara is carnivore now, which is a subsection of being ketogenic. So Sara produces ketones. Her body's fueled by ketones, beta-hydroxybutyrate. But same as myself, she's gravitated, and you obviously, Steve, she's gravitated more in towards animal-based. And that doesn't mean that we don't deviate at all, but predominantly animal-based. I think that's safe to say, Sara, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's steak and eggs is like staple. I do like a bit of salmon now and then, but yeah, it's more often steak and eggs, I'm afraid.
Steak and eggs. And I'm wearing the colours, or it's on that side.
You are?
Yeah, that's, yeah. So, which I do quite often. So I'm quite often on your pushing the local club, the Ferry Flatliners, as Steve will attest to, doing my little bit for the club because we're a small club.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, what Sara has achieved in, the 2 years, I think, Sara, you and I have been working together. And it's important also to remember that Sara didn't lose the weight because she was running and cycling. She began to run and cycle because she lost the weight. The energy came back, and you felt the need to be more active. You wanted to be more active. Your energy was higher. Sara would struggle to walk long distances prior to adopting this. And this is coming from a highly intelligent person. Sara is a neurophysiologist. There are very few of these in the UK, and I think she's regarded, correct me if I'm wrong, as one of the leading experts in the UK.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, when you look at how many are listed in the UK, and you know that there are very few, so you are, this is a highly specialist,
it's a very
area.
niche area.
So this is a very intelligent person. This is someone who, followed the general rule of healthy eating from the eat well plate, trying to eat lots of fiber and plants and fruit, and avoiding the saturated fats and consuming lots of whole grains, etc. So this is an intelligent person who became type 2 diabetic for 23 years, and it took weeks to reverse that. Wasn't it officially 3 months, going by blood tests with the diabetic clinic, but we did this in weeks, and this is how powerful the lifestyle is. And we're not saying that everybody who's listening has to go on to compete in triathlon and become a GB, qualifier and represent Team GB. But this is what is possible, So it, similar to myself in regards to the bodybuilding, which I've retired from, but you don't have to become a bodybuilder. These things came after. It was the weight loss, the increase in energy, the lower inflammation, or if not any, the higher mental clarity. All of these things just push you into doing something. Yourself, Steve, you've gone back into running recently, after chatting, back and forth, you and I in these podcasts, weeks on weeks, because you used to be quite an avid athlete in your former years yourself, and now that's something you've gone back into. So it's not a case of weight loss because Sara's been active. She's become active because of the weight loss.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing. Yeah, my running, by the way, I've never been a sprinter, so that's what I'm actually trying to do. I want to have a good time at a 100-meter sprint by the time I'm 60 next year. So let's just dive into a couple of people that commented. So Darren Jones there, thank you. Excited for this one. I put a message in because Sara mentioned she'd lost 6 stone. Well, for those that don't know what stones are, if you're in America or Canada, it's 14 pounds for each stone. So I think Sara's into about 91 pounds in total, actually. But let's have a look. Matthew saying hi to everyone, which is good. Carl, thank you. Evening, guys. Congratulations, Sara. Amazing achievement.
Oh, thanks, Carl.
Pursuit of Bliss just says, happy Sunday, y'all. I think you're saying it like that. Matthew's got a question. Yeah. So, yes, any comments, any questions, just feel free to drop one in. So, Matthew's saying, how long did it take Sara to get back to her best sport performance when switching from the standard balls diet to carnivore? So, how long did it take?
Well, I went from like a standard diet to low carb to keto. So I gradually, transitioned to low carb to keto over, well, obviously for months to reverse my diabetes. And then I was very, very strict keto for the rest of the year, where I've lost the weight. I lost the 6.5 stone in like 11 months. And then I didn't start running until after that. So my performance wasn't affected, if you like, because I wasn't doing any sport when I was trying to lose the weight. When I transitioned from keto to carnivore, it was over last winter. So it's been a year now since I've been carnivore. And it was sort of like the off season, just some cross country, and I had surgery just before Christmas, so I had some downtime. because I unfortunately rushed in for emergency surgery. So that meant like 12 weeks of no training, basically, which was hampered my London Marathon training because I was only allowed to run for a couple of weeks before the race. So, but yeah, I didn't find much difference running London Marathon, for example, carnivore this April, to running it on keto the year before. And I had a PB. I didn't felt I run as well this time, but I had a 10-minute PB. So I suppose swings and roundabouts. I didn't get what I was aiming for because perhaps my training wasn't as good because I couldn't run for like 3 months, but I still had a 10-minute PB. So whether that's because of carnivore or what, but yeah, it went well.
Brilliant. Now Richard's put something backstage, so we'll put that on the screen.
Oh, thanks for that, Rich.
It's okay. Anytime.
Now, for people listening to the audio podcast, all it is a before and after picture of Sara, and I strongly advise you, if you can get to a visual, it is amazing. So yes, Rich, what did you want to say?
So yeah, I mean, I just thought I'd add that on there because Sara wouldn't allow me to add it to her Facebook posts. She said, "No fat pics, please."
No, that was. I will interject there because you did post that when I did Ironman 2 weeks ago. You put that up.
I did, and for good reason.
Time, when I had the GB, I said, "Don't put my fat pic up because you've only just put it up 2 weeks ago."
Well, it deserves to be. It deserves to be echoed, doesn't it?
Um,
Can
I ask Sara why you don't like that?
No, he put it up 2 weeks prior because we did Ironman Barcelona 70.3 just 2 weeks ago today, and yeah, Rich put it up because that was a massive achievement for me to complete that, especially because I've only just learned to do triathlon since May, and it's still a learning curve. There's so much to learn in it. It's like, the second race I did, I was trying to get on my bike still with my wetsuit on. So it was like, you do all sorts of things wrong. But yeah, just trying to put it all together is amazing. But yeah, it was quite difficult in Barcelona just because it was very, very hot. I wasn't very well in the sea. And it was a long day, but I got it done.
Yeah, you did well there. I mean, the reason I was interested in that is because when I put on the weight in my 40s and I didn't know what was going on because I was, running 10 miles 3 times a week and a personal trainer and eating fruit and veg and avoiding fat, and I was getting plumper and plumper. I'm really gutted that I hid from photographs because I wish I now had a photograph about how unfit I got. Because I'd love to have before. I didn't know I was ever going to do this. Publicly, this sort of thing, and I wished that I had a before picture. I mean, both you and Rich got.
I have got quite a lot of fat pics, and Rich has them all actually, and he shares them. They're on Rota, and yeah.
Let's get a couple more comments because it's really nice that people are commenting. So Paul Pearson, Keto Sense. Amazing, Sara. You're a true inspiration. I always tell people about your story. Just proves the power of the lifestyle. Vitaligus is here again. That's good. Amazing transformation. And we got Cud Kiddie. Hi guys, 35-year-old male, 85 kilograms, 5 months carnivore. Feel great, looking great. However, recently my hunger is through the roof. The diet's not changed, training's not changed. Maybe due to lower body fat. Thoughts? So, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I have days where my hunger's through the roof and days where it isn't. It could be lack of fats. It could just be that now your body is healing. Just stick with it. I think 5 months is still early in the carnivore journey. Just remember that this is a lifestyle. It's not a sprint. Convos that we've had previously, Steve, we've shown that it took me 12 months to fully adapt. Listen to your body. Eat when you're hungry. If you're not hungry, don't eat. Always eat protein with fat. Eat as nature intended. And make sure that you're getting plenty of electrolytes either from natural sources as in pink Himalayan Celtic sea salt or supplement if you need to. But as long as those bases are covered and you're feeling great, then why not indulge and eat some more of that, those steak and eggs?
What about you, Sara? You got an answer or a thought?
Yeah, I just think that if you is he training recently?
Mm-hmm.
Training's not changed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, whether he's not eating enough of it, I find I feel fuller when I eat more protein, to be honest, as well. If I'm struggling, I would snack on an extra egg or two. And I find sometimes, obviously as an older woman, then I find sometimes at various points throughout my training cycle, I get more hungry on some days than others. And I definitely would eat more than one meal a day. Sometimes I eat 3 times in that day. And, most of the time I eat once. But I think you just have to listen to your body. And I'm trying to make sure I do that to make sure I've got enough fuel or fat on my body to be able to train, basically.
Yeah, I think they're good answers. Firstly, 85 kilograms, but we don't know. A 35-year-old male, but we don't know how tall he is, so we don't know how lean you are. That's a thing which would be handy to know. Of course, 5 months in, you're still adapting, and if you're eating more protein, don't forget that also requires more energy to process it. 5 times as much energy to process protein. So, although we don't really talk about calories, but just to make life easy for you. If you've got 2,000 calories with 100, if you use 2,000 calories a day with 100 grams of protein, and you did 2,000 calories with 200 grams of protein, you're going to have more of a calorie deficit with 200 grams of protein because it takes 5 times the amount of energy to process it compared to the other things you're eating. So there's lots of nuance there. You're 6'1", so you're pretty lean, and it could just be that your protein synthesis is more efficient. You're getting through the nutrients more. You're breaking down more protein, so therefore you're building better structures in your body. There's so many different things, but I would just go with what Rich and Sara said. Basically, if you're hungry, eat some more steak and eggs. Just eat some more. Go with your hunger. I mean, really do go with your hunger, and then I think everything will sort out. Personally, right? So look,
sorry, Stephen. Can I just add something else there?
Of course you can.
I was just thinking. Sometimes if I've had a really mentally stressful day, I can be a bit more hungry. I think obviously our brain uses loads of our energy, like 60% of the energy that we're taking in, and especially lots of those amino acids that we're eating, the proteins. So if I've been, really, really mentally stimulated at work and had to think a lot, then sometimes I do need to eat more. So I don't know what the guy is doing in the day, but maybe if he is doing something that's particularly stressful or mentally draining, then that's perhaps another reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. I'm always saying stuff like that. You could find that you're in a situation where your outside temperature is colder, so you're using more energy to keep you warm. So if you were going to go out on a polar expedition, I think the average male being told to go to the pole is required to eat. Again, I'm not a fan of calories, but everyone understands it. 5,000 calories per day just to maintain weight. Right. So if basically the sums are really easy. If you were told here now, in a normal sort of temperate place that you need 2,500 calories a day, in the North Pole, you'd need 5,000 to maintain exactly the same weight because your body is keeping you warm. So there's many different things that could be eating up your energy. So Rich in the background there has something else he's going to show us. So that was a really good little session there. Just get a couple of other things there. So Copper's Carnival Kitchen greetings from Alaska. Well, there you go. You see somewhere out there where it's pretty cold. Probably back at what I'm saying. So Matthew there, wow, 6.5 stone weight loss in 11 months is brilliant. Well done. And yes, so we just know that the last person there, 6'1" and 85 kilograms, so pretty lean. Rich, you have something else backstage. You're really on it today, mate, with your graphics.
Yeah, so you know me in the presentations, something Sara is very familiar with. So yeah, this looks at the thermic effect of food. So protein will spend 25 to 35% of its calories. Now we don't go by calories. I know, as you got any of the avid listeners would know, but unfortunately, it's the only form of energy measurement that we can actively use that people understand, isn't it? So it isn't the calories, but this underpins, I guess, what you were just saying. So it takes more energy basically to process protein compared to carbohydrates and even fat. So it's 25 to 35% with protein compared to 5 to 10 with carbohydrates and 0 to 5 with fat. So if we look at like the standard diet, so I'm swearing now. So that is the macronutrient split on the left. So it predominates carbohydrates. So if we were to swap the caloric value of carbohydrate to protein, the thermic effect would increase by 300, the equivalent of 380 calories each day, which could be the equivalent of 2 stone per year. So basically, without changing the caloric value of the food you're eating, but swapping the caloric value from carbohydrate to protein, that thermic effect would elicit potentially a 2 stone loss in weight, or you would be able to consume more food and maintain that weight, which is exactly what I seem to do on living carnivore. My diet is incredibly high in carnivore. I don't stop eating. I think Sara can attest to that. I love my food. I probably eat between 4,000 to 6,000 calorie equivalent per day on carbohydrate. It's probably sat around 2005, 2007, in which I would store fat day on day, week on week, and it resulted in me becoming type 2 diabetic and clinically obese. So it's not the calories, it's the source of the calories, but just that was to reiterate your point on the thermic effect of protein. So the more protein you eat, the more weight that you're going to lose to a level. And there are other factors involved as well, and we can go into more detail later, but lots of factors in regards to the endocrine system and ketogenesis and inflammation that allow us to waste that energy, as it were.
And I think also, it's just a thought that's come to me seeing your brilliant graphic there. If you look at fat, it takes like 5% energy to process it. But of course, that fat then goes on to energize you in a big way. This is, some people don't really get this, but if you have good levels of fat coming in, it helps you to burn fat. It helps your body in the energy to burn the fat that's on your body. And this is why it seems so counterintuitive, because the word fat that you're eating is the same as the fat on your body. So it's very easy for people to try and sell you that eating fat makes you fat. But actually, when they come to this way of eating, it is the complete reverse of that. Eating fat and losing body fat. So we got Just M. She's put, intuitive eating has been an exciting journey for me compared to being expected to eat everything on my plate as a child. Oh, wow. That's still something that does hang over even in carnivore for me. My mum was one of those that you've got to eat everything on your plate. There's people starving in Africa, so I did find that quite an interesting thing when I started eating carnivore. Being given the permission to eat to satiety and then eat more was interesting, but I also was maybe over serving sometimes and not being intuitive and thinking, I've got to finish this. I've got to finish it. There's people starving in Africa. But now I know, and this is especially true of carnivore, if you don't finish a rump steak, I tell you what, the next day, you put it in the fridge, the next day, you can do a pan-fried meal in about 2 minutes, and it's fabulous the next day. So I like this remark actually from Cud Kitty here. My only regret is not finding out about this lifestyle until now. It's like a cheat code, because it is, isn't it? It's so much simpler.
It is definitely. It's from a cooking point of view, it makes life so much easier as well. Both myself and my husband. I'm carnivore, and Mark is a little less strict carnivore. He would have occasional vegetables if he wanted them. Most of the time, he will just have steak and eggs, or like pork or bacon or whatever we're having. But yeah, it takes the pressure out of cooking, preparing meals. I think you just put the meat on, and it's so much easier, so much less time. For me, taking food to work is meal prepping for a couple of days for both of us as well. And I just take eggs with me, make scrambled egg in work for lunch, because in the hospital there isn't anything I can eat. So it's, I either take some meat in and scramble my eggs in work, or, it is very, very quick to cook.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think you're muted, Steve. Still muted.
I was muted there. Yeah, I feel that the sound is better when I'm muted, when other people speak. So sorry about that. Anyway, right, a question from Matthew, which I think is right up Richard's avenue here. Is low salt (brackets high potassium salt) natural sea salt or table salt with added K? I've heard some carnivores use it. So is low salt natural sea salt or table salt with added K?
Do you know, I don't know. I've heard low salt being thrown around a few times. If it is high potassium, then it's going to be better than standard, because as we know, we need a higher potassium to sodium ratio. But I guess, these salts could either be one or the other, couldn't they? You can get some salt which is natural, and some, it's easy to put a label on something and say, that it's got the right ratios, but where do these ratios come from? Matthew, I'm unsure, to be honest. I've never looked into whether low salt is natural or whether it's table salt. But I will look into that for you. It's something I've never tried personally. I don't know if it's something you're familiar with, Sara?
I have seen it on the shelves, but I would avoid it like the plague, to be honest. I wouldn't touch it. So I don't know what's in it, but because of where I see it, no, I wouldn't buy it.
Because yeah, that makes sense. Supermarket shelf, yeah.
Yeah, there's no chance.
Okay. Hi to Tam, who has asked, hi all, please may I ask, I've been carnivore 12 weeks, 5 eggs and steak a day, but now I'm feeling like I want something sweet. Why is this? And what do you recommend, please?
So Sarah's got a few cheats for this, isn't it? What do you recommend with a sweet sort of craving, Sarah?
Sweet craving wise, I use Richard's protein powder, the strawberry keto pro protein powder. So if I need something sweet, and because I'm past menopause, I don't know how old this lady is, whether you have sweet cravings with your hormones.
Tam is a guy.
Tam is a guy, right?
Yeah.
You're not having any hormonal sweet cravings, but with the protein powder, if you just add it to 2 eggs and whisk it, you can make strawberry pancakes, or you can make mug in a cake in a mug, or just have it with some Greek natural yogurt if you eat dairy on your carnivore. But yeah, not the Greek style, just plain Greek, and just mix it in with that. So I do use Richard's Keto Pro protein powder if we need an extra boost or a shake. For example, if I was training and needed something instantly.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I've got something I'm going to put in the comments and then read it out. It's about low salt from their website, which basically says that low salt is 2 natural mineral salts expertly blended for maximum flavor with minimum sodium. Low salt is a world-leading reduced sodium salt. It delivers 66% less sodium than regular table, sea, and rock salts without any taste compromise. Salt is the biggest source of sodium in our diets. A small amount of sodium is vital to our survival, but because salt is often hidden in the foods we eat, it's very easy to overconsume more sodium than our bodies actually need. I mean, I don't know whether I'm going to agree with that anyway, but there's your answer.
Again, it's easy to slap the natural label on something. A lot of these products that contain these fortified minerals are classed as natural, but they're mined from the ground. So it doesn't mean that it's come from what we would class as being clean natural sources, like Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan. They could be manufactured in a lab, and even I think the guidelines as far as natural goes, they can be synthesized to be the same as natural, and you can call them natural, which is mind-boggling. And obviously, I've learned that in my time being within the supplement space. So don't always believe when somebody labels something natural. And sodium is essential for life. We need far more of it than we're led to believe, way more. The guidelines tell us about 1,500 milligrams, but this massively increases all-cause mortality. One of the studies that we've referenced time and time again covers 17 countries, over 100,000 participants, and it shows that we need between 4,000 to 6,000 milligrams, which is considerably more than the 1,500 milligrams that we're told to consume. I consume closer to 10,000. That seems to be my sweet spot. No pun intended. But obviously, as we know, the more sodium we consume, the more potassium we need, because sodium depletes potassium also. So it's, there's a counter argument again that I guess, isn't it? But I mean, it's the source of these salts is really important. And again, this is why we created the electrolytes that we do and we use, because we know exactly where they come from. They are genuinely natural sources in the form of pink Himalayan and Celtic sea salt. But it, don't always believe what the labels tell you, especially when something's labeled. It may be natural, it may be properly natural, but it doesn't mean that it is if just because it says natural, believe it or not.
Yes. So Tam has just added, just so you know, I've torn both meniscus and now it's affected my lower back. I swim and try to train, but limited to anything I can do. Please, thanks so much. Thank you so much to all of you. So yeah, and that the problem is with your knees, if you have a torn meniscus, I don't know what sort it is, whether it's lateral or if it's a bucket handle or how you did both, or if it's both at the same time, it will affect your gait because your body will walk differently. Now, I mentioned this last week. I've also gone back to playing five-a-side soccer after 10 years of not playing. And one of the guys there, much younger than me, has torn both his meniscus, and he's about the most skillful player on the pitch. So doesn't mean it's the end of your active life. In fact, when I went back, I've only gone for 3 weeks. The first time I met them, he mentioned to me that he had this torn meniscus, but in both knees, and I wasn't expecting him. So it just shows I wasn't expecting him to be particularly good, because he'd said he had this problem, and he was amazing, fleet of foot and brilliant, just and quick. So I don't think if you're thinking you don't believe it, I was there 3 weeks ago. I was never 100% certain that with both meniscus being a problem, whether you could really get to be very active. I do a lot of rehab, and I've helped people with one injury. Never dealt with two meniscus at the same time. So anyway, and that will affect your lower back because of your gait being affected. So that's interesting. But this way of eating is going to give you the best chance to recover. Matthew has got a question for us. Matthew is saying, Matthew gets his money's worth. You see, he comes onto the live stream and he asks questions. Don't be shy, people. If you want to ask questions, just put them in the comments and we'll try to answer them. We always have a little bit of a lag. So this was posted at 7:26. So we're now 6 minutes behind, but we do try to give you a full answer. Anyway, are cold hands and feet a sign of vitamin deficiencies, such as iodine, when eating enough food? Cold hands and feet.
I think this is something you suffered with for a little while, Sara, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm still cold a lot. To be honest, I've been out and about today, and I wasn't in Alaska or anywhere really cold, but it's quite chilly out today, and yeah, definitely feeling it just because of the lack of body fat. But when I'm cycling, I do find that my feet and my hands get really, really cold. And a training buddy of mine who suffers really, really bad, Amanda, with it as well, with Raynaud's. And, sometimes she's questioned whether it's whether the carnivore is helping. But yeah, she's stuck with it, and hopefully she, it's getting better. But yeah, it is definitely something that we feel the cold.
Yeah, I put it down to the lower body fat as well. I mean, it could potentially be a deficiency, but then when we look at the vitamins, minerals that we consume, if we're eating from grass-fed animal proteins, we should be getting almost everything that we need. If it is an iodine deficiency, put some chicken in. Chicken's a good source. Fish, there are other sources in regards to seaweed and things like that as well, but we try not to promote things like that, do we? But I mean, it's there's lots of places you can get iodine naturally, but I'd be hard pressed to say it's a deficiency. Now, I find that I generally run a lot hotter since I've been carnivore. So I've, like, in the nights, my body is on fire, and I put this down to, again, the thermic effect of protein. But I do notice that my hands and my feet feel, the cold coming towards the winter. And I don't put it down to a circulation issue. I tend to believe that it's more to do with lack of fat around my hands and my feet. And the reason I think that is that since I've been running with the Flatliners, I used to be a size 8. And I noticed that my toe kept piercing the Ferry Flatliner socks, which are incredibly thick, even just after one race, which shouldn't happen. And I even burst through the front of my trainers, which are incredibly expensive. At least I believe they are. Bloody hell, this running lark has cost me way too much money. But it's because my foot keeps sliding within the trainer. So I've had to go to a smaller shoe. So I've had to drop from an 8 to a 7.5 to prevent my feet from sliding. And I think it's to do with the fat that I've lost around my ankles, my feet, and my hands. But yeah, that would be my take. Have you got anything to add, Steve?
Yeah, quite the reverse when it comes to feet, because I do barefoot training and I do the barefoot trainers. I don't use any supports or whatever, and my feet are broader, so actually they've gone from 8 to 9. And if I wear shoes, like ordinary shoes, my feet hurt because I'm barefoot now. Your feet spread out to be a more natural. Not more natural shape. So like the toe box is on standard shoes is about 8 centimeters, and your feet at my age are on average about, or should be on the natural foot is about 11. So you are in these shoes that are squeezing those up. To answer your hot and cold thing, I think there is a division as well between women and men. I think more women have the cold hands and cold feet. Possibly that is related to the thyroid in some way, and which is I think why people think of iodine as the first port of call. And I agree with you, Rich. You just chicken and fish. If you start to consume more natural iodine and see if that resolves it, then Bob's your uncle, isn't it? So I think it's just a case of experimenting. I would say there is. But this is from rehab, by the way. There is some people that do have a little bit of compromised circulation. So if you look at their cervical, vertebrae, and it's a little bit compressed, just a little bit of movement and what's called cavitation there. I've had miraculous results over the sort of 10 years I've been doing that, where people come in with cold hands, and I get them to sit there, and literally within 20 minutes. Their hands warm up and they can't believe it, and you can get rid of Raynaud's and stuff like that. But I don't want to get into too much of that, because that's not what this is about. This is about nutrition. It's not about my rehab practice. But there's always more than one thing that could be the reason. So it could be muscular, and it could be neurotransmitters. It could be reverse T3. It could be not eating enough. It could be not wearing the right clothing. So many things. And Sara mentioned stress, for instance, and there are so many things that could be causing it. But
can I add something in there, Stephen, as well? I was reading a book while I was on holiday, which was about aging, basically, and genetics and epigenetics, as you do when you're supposed to be relaxing. But but it was really interesting. But part of the book was on fasting, and I did read in there that, obviously when you fast, if your body is using energy and you're not replacing it, then it'll take the energy from all of the distal areas to protect everything it needs to, obviously, because our brain uses most of our energy, as I mentioned earlier. But so perhaps the cold hands and feet I don't know if the gentleman is fasting, if he's getting bouts of that after fasting or during fasting, because his energy is being used elsewhere in his body. It's just a thought, that's all, because I'd read that the other week.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to what I've been reading about the Arctic, as you heard earlier, I mean, the core temperature is critical, isn't it? I mean, so basically that's why you get frostbite in your head, fingers and toes, because
Exactly.
your essential organs are being protected and the heat of your core is maintained and your peripherals are, well, you know, they're sacrificed for some people.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's loads to it. So, Rich, I know you've got something in the backstage. Can we just catch up with a couple of other comments? Peter, if you are ketogenic, you need to keep replacing sodium. Recommended maximum is far too low, and I think that's just echoing what Rich was saying about how important sodium is. We have Mitzi. How long should I take electrolytes for after going carnivore?
So this is a topic that is not as easy to answer as one would think. I take electrolytes every day. The reason we need electrolytes initially, I'll give a quick rundown on this, is that we tend to come from a state of high insulin. And I will keep this brief, Steve. I know we've got lots to get through, but insulin drops. It signals the kidneys to release sodium from 4 points in the nephrons in the kidneys, which leads to a sodium deficiency. So we need to replace sodium, especially in the early stages. The body can adapt and it can get back to a position where you don't need to supplement, as in add in salts to our foods anymore. But when we look at how man evolved, through our whole evolutionary period, we would have been exposed to salt in the foods. The cattle or the animals that we would have killed who would have eaten the grass would have been non-compromised by things like glyphosate. So the nutrients would have been far more dense. We would have been consuming a lot more in the form of minerals. We would have been crushing bones, eating bone marrow, and eating all the niggly bits on the bones, which are high in electrolytes and collagens. We would have been cutting out animals and pieces of meat and chucking it on the ground, which is going to pick up, rock salts. We would have been drinking water from puddles, all this sort of stuff. So there's no doubt that these minerals are essential, but we can get an awful lot of these from the food that we eat. So, beef contains a high level of sodium and even higher in potassium, about 4-to-1 sodium to potassium. So we get lots from the food we eat. Now, I find that I function better when I keep the sodium or, the electrolytes in. But I do a lot of training as well. And then we get the opposite side in the likes of Dr. Anthony Chaffee, who doesn't add salt at all to his meals. And he functions perfectly fine. So, there is an argument for both sides. And I don't think this is as clear as one would have liked. But I think you need to listen to your body, experiment, and see what you function better with. If I don't add electrolytes in, I feel a little bit more foggy in the brain. My concentration is lagging. The mental clarity is lagging. I certainly wouldn't be able to come onto a podcast like this and be firing on all cylinders. So for me, the electrolytes seem to make a world of difference. I think Sara can probably attest to that in regards to her and her training and things as well. But then, I've had this conversation with Dr. Chaffee and he functions perfectly well without, any added electrolytes. And then we've got Sean Baker, who adds electrolytes in because of the volume of training he does. So there is a subsection of carnivores who don't use salt at all whatsoever, not even from Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan. And there are others who add just that. And then there are others who add that and more. So it could be a case that as you transition in, your requirement may be diminished and you no longer need a supplement. But you need to gauge that for yourself. Maybe put them in initially and try to wean off and see what effect it has. Your body will soon tell you because you'll crave the salt. So I put an awful lot of salt in my meals. My body tells me that I need the salt sometimes. So I went out for a meal last night, as it happens. And, I didn't want salt on my meal. I didn't feel the need for it, so I didn't add it. And coming back to a point you made earlier, Sar, in regards to convenience, Amanda and my little girl and I were sitting there and she commented how long the food was taking to be cooked. And she said, "Oh, it must be your steak." I was like, "No, my steak is the quickest thing to cook. I have it done rare. It literally takes a minute or two. There's no, but that's the common things. Steak is one of the quickest meals. It probably takes less time to cook a steak than it does to cook an egg. So this food is highly convenient. And that's another main contributing factor in regards to why people struggle to live this lifestyle. Cost is an issue, so they say, but what they don't account for is the lack of the takeaways and things that they're consuming. One takeaway that I used to buy, every couple of days would cost between 30 to 40 pounds. I only spend that now on a week on meat, so yes, meat is more, when you quantify it in regards to a box of cereal or something, but you eat a lot less, and it's cooked a lot quicker. So the whole cost and convenience thing completely out of the window once you eradicate all of these nasties and other things that you were consuming on your previous lifestyle. There we are, my rant over.
Well, yes, and also this was the promised short answer.
That was short.
That is short for Richard.
So, Rich, you've got something backstage. Do you want to do that, or do you want to do the questions that are popping up? It's up to you.
It's up to you. Yeah. Chuck this on, because I think that this is just the study that I was that I mentioned earlier. Let me just make that a little bit bigger. So this is the study that covered 17 countries and over 100,000 participants, and it shows that when we go below 2,000 milligrams, death increases massively, with the sweet spot being somewhere between 4,000 to 6,000, and even right down the other end, this end, if you can see my cursor on there, this is still considerably lower than healthier than being at 1.5, which is probably around there. Now this is where, I am generally is around 10,000 milligrams per day. And that's what works best for me. But again, we're all different. Our needs are different. I thrive on salt. But salt can also be addictive as well. This is something that we don't talk about within our community. Salt can be addictive, and that in itself can fuel sugar cravings. Nothing is ever black and white in anything. And it is a case that excess salt consumption could be a trigger to sugar cravings also. And again, this is something you're not going to know unless you've been living the lifestyle a long time and given time to adapt. Nothing is black and white. I had a comment on one of my YouTube videos recently in regards to the Professor Noakes video that I've done. And somebody on there, Cami was an avid listener of ours. Apology, I haven't replied yet to that. I get so many comments and messages, and I don't have a PA to answer my messages or to do my social media stuff. So it is me that replies to these messages and comments back. But it does take an awful long time to go through these, because I have to work as well. Obviously, we do this every Sunday for 2 hours between the two networks, and this is free. The consultations that Sara and I do is free. We work with Diabetes UK for free. An awful lot of our time is given for free. So I do have to work amongst that time as well. So I don't always get a chance to reply. But Cami came back with a few, quite a big essay actually, which we can probably go into more detail on the next platform. But nothing's clean cut. So Professor Noakes was basically saying, carbohydrates are detrimental. But it's difficult. It's difficult within our community to say that, X amount of carbohydrates is detrimental, while a little bit is okay. Well, what's a little bit? What source do they come from? So we tend to get trapped in these areas of, anti-carb and carb and meat and protein and all these sorts of things. But everybody is different. And that's the reality. Everybody's different. My requirement would be different from yours, Steve, to Sara's, etc., etc. There are some rules that I believe are consistent across the board, but nothing is straightforward. And we do need to go into a little bit of detail in regards to some of these comments. I think it'll be an awesome talking point, maybe if we can cover in either the next show on this platform or on the next one. But I'll leave you crack on with the questions.
Yeah, that's okay. And so if people are enjoying hearing these questions being answered, you could also look at our Mighty Networks, which we're running, and there is a free membership, or you could be part of the Fat Club, where you'll see lots of these presentations and lots of these questions being answered by myself and by Rich as well. So,
and Sara is going to be joining us in there soon, isn't she? So anybody that's got any questions that doesn't want to ask us, any females from a female perspective.
You mean they want a short answer, yeah? They want
yes.
Okay. So here we go. So Sam here from Okawana, of course, one of the blue zones where allegedly they don't eat any meat, but of course they do. And there's one pig for every 6 people there on the island. You don't have pigs unless you eat them. Anyway, I'm not going to get into a rant about the rubbish blue zone stuff, but here's what Sam says. Salt has changed my athletic performance. I was depriving myself of salt as as a healthy athlete since I was a teenager. It's malpractice to put out general guidelines meant for sick people. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Paul here has put, he suffered from Raynaud's for years. Carnivore 1 year seems to have resolved this for me. And I think a lot of that is down to good nutrition and lowered levels of inflammation.
Paul's got a fantastic story as well. He'd be worth getting on one evening or even on my podcast or yours, Steve. Good guy, Paul.
Yeah,
brilliant
great.
Story.
Now, here's something that I have dabbled with. Emma is saying an ice cold shower routine inspired by Wim Hof has improved my lifelong sensitivity to being cold all the time. And I would say that is true. I didn't ever put this out, but I videoed myself doing my first ever cold shower about 2 years ago. It wasn't rude. It was just embarrassing because I was just screaming, so it might have been funny. But my tolerance of the cold shower improved quite dramatically. And I like what Rich said earlier about lower body fat, because I was feeling, definitely feeling a bit more cold. But since those showers, actually, I don't. Even today, I was by the sea with a sea breeze, and I did have a short sleeve shirt on. So anyway,
ice showers also are true hormesis. That is one form of true hormesis that actually exists. So we look at these implementation of plants and things that give this effect, and it's a fallacy. Cold water therapy is one of very few real true effects of hormesis. So a fantastic tool to implement for biohacking.
Definitely great. I love a cold shower after a sauna as well, and I've got a ice cold plunge pool for the back garden, so it's it's really
but you
good.
didn't tell me that. I'm gonna have to call down after my sessions now. Right, that's what I'm going
all the time.
I will.
Reality Chick, which is one of my favorite names. Salt literally revived me this week, so I'd like to know what that is, what happened there, because that sounds pretty fascinating to me.
Can I just mention that? Because sorry, Stephen, to interject.
Yeah, go on, carry on.
No, I was just going to keep up the point regarding the salt and the electrolytes. I don't think I could go a day without adding in electrolytes to my daily routine. For me, they are essential. I do add pink Himalayan salt to eggs when I cook them, literally for taste. But I also think sometimes if I need something sweet, it's not something sweet I'm craving, it's actually salt. So I would definitely have some salt then and take the electrolytes, because it's salt I want rather than something sweet. But I find that I wouldn't be able to function well throughout the day without the electrolytes that obviously the Keto Pro ones I use, and I drink them, throughout my work day, throughout the evening while I'm training, to make sure that I maintained with all micronutrients, basically, not just sodium.
Cool. That's great. Thank you for that. Right. Next one. I can dive in with the next question if you want. By the way, we'll be going over to the other platform at 8 p.m., the one that rhymes with crumble. So Mitzi here. Have you ever heard of carnivore fixing hyperhidrosis? My hands and feet can sweat uncontrollably, even if I just think about it. Current best treatment is something like Botox. Yes, I have heard about that, because you're worried about overactive sweat glands, which is it's what's called a primary condition. So that's the mainstream take on it. Okay. Well, I used to have this. I used to sweat embarrassingly so. Carnivore, low carb, actually, keto and carnivore have fixed this. So what used to happen was it would be embarrassing, basically. I would sweat sort of under my arms, and also my bum crack basically would be terrible. So I'd have a wet patch on my trousers, so I couldn't wear light trousers. All right, so that's a bit too much information. It was incredibly embarrassing, incredibly embarrassing. So what did I do to fix it? Nothing other than wear dark trousers and try not to get too sweaty. I would sweat absolute buckets, really horrible, and that has completely and utterly stopped, with no Botox, with no treatments, nothing, doing nothing really, other than low carb keto. And like I say, the cold showers, for instance, it had finished. This problem had finished for me way before I was even doing that. But I think, I'm not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing. I'm telling you what happened to me. And I have had this now repeated back to me by clients that have also had the same condition, saying it's completely gone. I'm not saying it will, but that is the question, isn't it? Yeah. Have you ever heard of it? Been fixed? Yes. For myself and for quite a few people. What about you two?
Oh, Rich?
No, go on, fire away.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's I haven't seen anybody who's got it, but I've heard it's a lot like the fight and flight and anxiety and all sorts of things that can, give you the extra sweating if you like. So it's more of the sympathetic nervous system taking over. But yeah, I've read that lots of people have been cured on carnivore diet. I think Dr. Ben, somebody had it on, I was watching on YouTube, but I can't remember his name, sorry. But yeah, I have seen it, that it's been cured with carnivore because of the neurotransmitters. So
cool. So yeah, I'm going to apologize to the few people we haven't got to. Just zipping through there. Let's see if I can get another one. No matter how much electrolytes I measured and took, fluids in my heart rate would always skyrocket with any exercise. Felt great otherwise. So I think that's sorry, I'm really rushing now because I want to get to a couple of other things. Christina, cold showers and cold swimming, and I no longer have Raynaud's. I stayed away for years thinking it would make me worse. So let's go back to the green hoodie. Yeah, sorry, yes. So no matter how much electrolytes I measured and took, fluids in my heart rate would always skyrocket with any exercise. Felt great otherwise. I don't think that's a question. That's just a remark.
Yeah, there's another one a little bit further down as well, which goes on to about electrolytes, good water intake. The heart rate would always shoot up. Now, there are some people who this can happen to when they come into a low-carb, ketogenic, carnivore state for a number of reasons. One of the main contributing factors could be something to do with the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. For many people, insulin will drop and leave us deficient of sodium. But when we replace the sodium, the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system can have the opposite effect and cause the release of aldosterone. I don't think we've got enough time there for me to go through the mechanism, and maybe we can touch base on that on the next platform. But basically, it causes more sodium retention. So it has this opposite effect to a lot of people. So adding in sodium to some people could actually be detrimental and cause an increase in heart rate. There was another gentleman I was working with recently who, regardless of what he did with electrolytes, still increased heart rate when he ate meat. I later found that the meat he was eating was not grass-fed. It was processed and contained vegetable oils or seed oils high in the oxidized omega-6 linoleic acid. So there's lots of contributing factors as well. But electrolytes isn't the answer for everybody. In some people, that may have the opposite effect. And if we've got time, maybe we can run through that on the next platform. If not, maybe next week, Steve.
Yeah. So, Sara, are you doing the next hour? I didn't think you were.
No, I'm not doing the next hour this week. I shall see you another time.
Okay. So do you want to say goodbye to everybody? Yeah.
Cop out. Part-timer. I don't know.
All right. So I put a link into the next hour, and Sara, that was amazing. And it's good news that you're going to do the Mighty Networks. If you haven't checked out our Mighty Networks, there will be a link in the description once this has finished. Not straight away. It takes about, I don't know, 24 hours for it to get in there. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for their questions. I want to thank Sara, and Rich and I will see you over on the other platform. I have put a link in the comments. If you still struggle to find it, I'll be very surprised because we had so many people follow us last week. Any final thoughts, Rich?
No, I'd just like to thank Sara for coming on.
No
always
problem.
appreciate her input and her time. Thank you again, Steve. And thanks everybody for listening. I mean, there's a lot of repeat viewers and supporters of the channel. We can't do what we do without their support. As I said earlier, we don't get paid for this. So, I mean, to know that you guys are coming back and supporting means an awful lot, because it's through you we can grow the channel and spread the word and educate more and more people. So thank you guys too.
Okay. Right. Thanks a lot. Thank you. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.